Welcome to Digital Learning, an initiative of Directorate of Collegiate Education, Government of Karnataka. The Liar, a short story written by Mulk Anand, is prescribed for 3rd semester BCom General English affiliated to Bengaluru North University. I am Nandana NG, Assistant Professor of English, Government First Grade College, Bagepalli. In the previous session, that is the introductory session, we introduced ourselves to the author Mulkraj Anand, and then we also introduced ourselves to the lesson The Liar, which is a short story written by him. In this session, session number 14, we shall focus on the plot of the story. The Liar is a short story by Mulkraj Anand. Content. The content of the session are as follows: recapitulation of previous knowledge, learning objectives, session outcome, the lesson The Liar, story, unit 1. The entire story can be divided into 2 units because in this story, The Liar, Labu narrates 2 stories or 2 false stories. So, in this session, we will focus on the first part or the first story that Labu narrates. The Liar story is continued, and then we will try to recapitulate what is it that we learned through the course of this session. We will also have a multiple choice questions. Recap of previous knowledge. Mulkraj Anand is a well-known Indian writer, a novelist and a short story writer. Mulkraj Anand was born in 1905 in Peshawar. He started writing in pre-independence era. Mulkraj Anand was fortunate enough to have received his education in English medium, and as a result he was a representative of Indian aspect, and he used English as a medium to write his literature. And one thing to be noted here is, though he was writing in English, yet he focused on the Indian aspect, and most of his stories, novels, etc. have India as the main character. And his writings are prominent or popular not only in India, but it has also gained international readership. He is also considered one of the pioneers of Indo-Anglican fiction. Indo-Anglican fiction refers to that part of literature which were written by Indians as they were writing it in English, but the literature was written by Indians. So, such literature is known as Indo-Anglican fiction. In fact, Mulkraj Anand, along with Raja Rao and R.K. Narayan, is considered to be one of the pioneers or one of the starting members of writing in Indian English fiction. He is also the writer of the very popular novel Untouchable and a recipient of the Padma Bhushan, the most or one of the most popular novels, popular awards given in India. He received the Padma Bhushan in 1968. So, when we look at the story, The Liar, the title, it says the liar. The person who lies a lot is known as a liar. Here in the story, Labu, the prominent character or the main character, is the liar. In fact, if the story was titled Labu, yes, maybe it would have been right, but the title Liar is very appropriate. Why is Labu known as the liar? Because he tells cooked up stories, or he cooks up so many stories that in fact Labu and liar both are synonymous. It is like they are two faces of the same coin. The narrator Anand. This in fact is an autobiographical story. The narrator Anand is recollecting these stories from his childhood. So, through the course of the story, the boy makes it very clear, the boy Anand, that he does not believe in the stories of Labu. But the story contains some cooked up stories. That is why the title, The Liar, is appropriate. What are the objectives, learning objectives of this session? Learning objectives of the session are to motivate the students in creative short story writing. Yes, story as a genre, it again has many types. In that, short story, people are fascinated to listen to stories, to read stories. In fact, many a time they are also interested in writing stories, but then they do not know how to proceed. So, through the course of this session, the students will be motivated as to how to write a creative short story. It will also help the student to develop interest for storytelling. As I told before, storytelling is an art. You should know how to narrate a story. By the art of narration, you can make even a dull story very interesting. It will also help to develop imaginative power of the students. It will also help to develop interest for language learning through the course of this session. The students will be able to familiarize themselves with the art of storytelling. Session outcomes. At the end of the session, the students will be able to read, understand and appreciate the content of the text. Yes, only if you are able to read, you can understand, and only if you are able to understand and analyze, you will be able to appreciate the content of the text. The student will be able to recognize the elements of the story. In turn, this will develop the art of storytelling and also help the student or aid the student to write creative short stories. It will also encourage the student to expose themselves to folklore. Folklore meaning Janapada Sahitya. They will be more interested in folklore. Now let us start with the story here. Labu, by now we are familiar as a character. He is the prominent character upon which the story The Liar is based upon. He is an old shikari of the village. In fact, he is in his middle age. Labu, in his physical description, is a very short man, very thin and wiry. In fact, physically also he is not like a giant. He looks like an ordinary person. In fact, he is more on the thin and the lean side. He is an old shikari of the village. In the village that he is residing, he is considered one of the old shikaris. These shikaris, the shikari is a Kannada word which says these were the people who used to accompany the Britishers when they went for hunting. So Labu has been doing this from a long time, and he was also known to be a good shikari, and he was one of the oldest shikaris of the village. But he was a born liar and a good storyteller. Uh, we do not know as to why people lie or why this character Labu lies a lot, but then he was so accustomed to lying that it was felt that he was a born liar, but he was a good storyteller. Here there is a fine line between lying and storytelling. Maybe he was so used to lying that he was not aware that most of the stories that he was telling were lies, but still he was very good at fabricating stories, and as a result most of the people in the village were mesmerized by his stories. He was a thin little man with immense energy. In the physical description of Labu, it is given that he was not that tall, he was quite thin and on the lean side, but he had immense energy. He had a lot of energy. He could jump from one point to the other with the agility of a monkey there. Though he was getting old, yet that immense energy of his made him valuable as a shikari while being accompanied by the Britishers. He was appointed as shikari by Subedar for a season. Subedar is a British term. In fact, the Subedar was a person who worked in the army. He had many people under him, many soldiers under him. So, the Subedar, whenever he went for hunting, this hunting session used to go on for days together. So, whenever Subedar used to go to the forest for hunting for days together, a troop of people would accompany him, and among them a few shikaris also were taken. And usually the Subedar, whenever he went for hunting, he asked Labu to accompany him. Though he was a liar, he was a good shikari, and he always accompanied the Subedar. The boy, that is Anand, learned to create cooked up stories from him. In the initial part of the story, it is made clear that the boy, the narrator Anand, had a fascination for Labu. In fact, Labu and this boy had a sort of a very delicate friendship as such, or it can even be seen as a master-apprentice relation there, wherein Labu the liar taught the boy, young boy, how to lie, how to get out of certain difficult situations. This is not a very positive sign there, older person teaching a younger person to lie, but here we have to see that he was not related to the boy. Labu the liar was not related to the young boy Anand. He was living in the village, and some sort of friendship seemed to have developed between Anand the boy and Labu. And somewhere Labu had tried to impress Anand by teaching him how to fabricate, how to lie out of awkward situations. And the boy did not believe his stories of devil ram. Though the boy was very happy with all the lying that he was being taught by Labu, yet when he had told a few stories, particularly the story of the devil ram, which Labu narrated with great relish and with a lot details, yet the boy did not believe his stories. Labu told the story of apparition. In fact, in this story, the first story there told by Labu, he narrates the story of apparition. Apparition can be taken as suddenly a form emerging out of nowhere. Whenever he told this story, the boy never believed him. According to this story, this is a very interesting story. I would like to advise the students to focus on these two stories. The first story is the devil ram and the second story about the magical princess. Both the stories are important from the exam point of view because the details, the way the story is narrated, those details are very important. So according to this first story, Labu told the boy Anand, once he went to Shikar with Subedar as accustomed to the way it happened. Subedar, when he went hunting, he took Labu with him for shikar. According to Labu, the Subedar was very scared, but it was Labu who took the lead and he took Subedar along with him in search of this mythical beast. At one point, in Devi Parbat. According to the story, Devi Parbat is a place which occurs in Himalayas. So, in Himalayan mountains full of snow, you will have to visualize this. Labu the liar is jumping from one hill to the other with great physical agility, followed by the Subedar who is unable to keep up with him. At one point, the devil ram in Kannada refers to Tagaru, the devil ram appears, and the description of the devil ram is very important. In the text, an entire paragraph has been dedicated to the description. It just throws light on the creative aspect of Labu the liar, who used so much of details that whatever he had seen in real life, he used it to fabricate this story. According to him, the devil ram that appeared at Devi Parvat, it was the size of an elephant. It had big eyes. The eyes were as big as hen's eggs, and it had a long beard. The beard was as long as the beard of the Maulvi in the village, and it has big teeth, etc. The way he describes the devil ram by using the comparison elements through whatever he has seen in the course of his stay in the village, this itself gives a clue to the reader that he is lying. And he even adds details. He says that the devil ram came out of the crackling mountain. See, a lot of fantasy elements are also interposed there. But then he also says he stood bravely when others trembled. Now, always remember, in our stories, we are the heroes. So, likewise, for Labu, in his story, he says, when this apparition, when this devil ram, which looked like a elephant, which was as huge as an elephant, which had this huge eyes as big as hen's eggs, long beard, etc. When it came out, everybody were scared. In fact, he gives a graphic description as to how everybody trembled while Labu stood bravely. This is slightly difficult to believe because on the physical aspect, Labu was very thin, and somewhere he was not as brave as he portrayed himself to be. But then it is his story, and we have to believe when he says that he stood bravely while the others trembled in fear, including the Subedar. So, in this story, Labu posed himself as a hero. In this story, where the mythical devil ram appears, according to him, the beast appeared, and it was he who stood in front of the devil ram, while everybody, including the Subedar, trembled with fear. But still, he was unable to catch the beast. So, Labu posed himself as a hero in this story. Now, let us try to recapitulate what is it that we learned through the course of this session. By now, we are familiar with the character Labu. Labu is an old shikari of the village in which the boy Anand, the narrator, also stays. The boy is in fact fascinated by Labu. Not only the boy, for that matter, the entire village was adoring Labu, for that matter. They all knew, most of the adults were familiar with the fact that Labu was a liar, but most of the children and the youngsters were impressed by all the creative stories told by Labu. He was a born liar, but he was a good storyteller. Yes, he was a born liar, but all the stories narrated by him were made for good listening. The boy Anand learned to create cock and bull stories from him. Yes, the boy Anand, though he listened to most of the stories, he also learnt how to lie from Labu. So, this itself shows very clearly that Labu lied a lot, and not only that, he also taught the younger children how to lie. So, this shows that he was actually a bad influence on the children. Cock and bull stories. Cock and bull, the Kannada equivalent would be kage gubekate, as they say. That is nothing but to say all sorts of fantasy elements are put together, and as a result such stories are known as cock and bull or nonsensical stories. The boy did not believe his stories of Devil Ram. This Devil Ram story by Labu is usually narrated, but initially when the boy listened to the story, maybe he was encouraged or maybe he was inspired by the story, but over a period of time he started doubting it and he did not believe this story, particularly of the Devil Ram. He told the story of the apparition. This is among the two stories in the Liar short story told by Labu. The first story is about the devil ram. The devil ram looked like a huge elephant. It appeared at Devi Parbat. It was the size of an elephant. It had big eyes as big as hen's eggs, and it had a long beard as big as the Maulvi of the village, and it had big teeth, and all the physical description of the body is given there, wherein he compares it to whatever he has seen through the course of his lifetime. And then as Labu is narrating the story, he says that when this mythical beast appeared, everybody including the Subedar were scared. They were trembling with fear, but it was only Labu who stood bravely. He was the only one who faced the mythical beast. But then the boy Anand did not believe his story. So this is where the friction starts, when the boy Anand tells him that he did not believe his story, and as a result Labu becomes angry that the young boy is doubting him, and that leads to some sort of break in their relationship, and for some time later Labu and the young boy do not speak to each other because of this aspect of Anand doubting Labu. Now let us test ourselves with the help of multiple choice questions. First question: Labu is a dash of the village. Lawyer, Subedar, liar, leader. By now you should be familiar. Labu is a, answer C, liar of the village. Yes, he is also a shikari, one of the oldest shikari of the village, but then if you look at the options provided here, the only option that is appropriate in this context is Labu is a liar of the village. Second question: who is the narrator of the story? Narrator is the person who tells the story from his point of view. The options for this question are mother, Deep Singh, the Subedar, or Labu, the boy Anand. Yes, who is the narrator of the story? The answer is answer D, the boy Anand. The boy Anand is none other than the author Mulk Anand himself. As a young boy, when he was a young boy growing up in his village, these were the stories or these were the incidents that happened in his life. He is reminiscing those stories. As a result, this is an autobiographical story of Mulk Anand himself, and in the course of the story, it is the boy Anand. Who engaged him for shikar? The question should be, who engaged Labu for shikar? Subedar Deep Singh, the boy Anand, Devil Ram, or the mother? The answer is option A, Subedar Deep Singh. Yes, it can't be the boy Anand or the Devil Ram nor mother. The answer is Subedar Deep Singh engaged Labu for his shikari services when he went for hunting for a season. Fourth question: Labu met the devil ram dash. Where was it this, according to Labu's story, where did this devil ram appear? At his village, at the peak of Devi Parbat, in the forest, or at Subedar's house? If you have listened to the story in detail, by now you will be familiar. According to Labu, when he went with Subedar on hunting to the Himalayas. There he met this devil ram, or this devil ram appeared to him at the peak of Devi Parbat. So the answer is answer B. The Labu met devil ram at the peak of Devi Parbat. Labu's stories are dash stories, created, true, believable or real, and the answer is option A, created stories, or in fact you can say they are fictional stories also. Here the appropriate answer is created stories. The sources and references used for this session: